Hawaii is home to 8 units of the national park system. Some are more famous than others, Hawaii Volcanoes, Haleakala, and Pearl Harbor, for instance, but others are lesser known, exploring the rich cultural and historical sites of the Hawaiian people, and which are simply not as familiar to most visitors. In this video, we're going to hit them all, diving deep into each of Hawaii's 8 national park sites. Alright, we're going to organize this video geographically by visiting the various Hawaiian islands and analyzing their own unique collection of national park sites. We'll start on Maui. Maui is home to Haleakala National Park, one of the flagship parks of Hawaii. Haleakala is split into 2 main sections, the Summit District and the Kipahulu District. The Summit District is probably the one you're more familiar with because this is where you go to see one of Haleakala's most famous sites, the Sunrise, or Sunset. I went for Sunset and it was still just as good. The Summit District is aptly named because it protects the summit of the dormant Haleakala Volcano at a little over 10,000 feet in elevation. The other part of the park, the Kipahulu District, is vastly different though. Whereas the Summit District is on the dry side of the island and largely characterized by sparsely vegetated volcanic landscapes, the Kipahulu District is on the wet side of the island and is much more lush with lots of tropical rainforest vegetation and waterfalls. Also, Haleakala is one of the most biodiverse national parks in the system. Because Maui is an island that has never been connected to land in any way, many of the species that originally colonized here rapidly diversified into a bunch of different species to fill various ecological niches. This is a process known as adaptive radiation, and it makes Haleakala National Park home to hundreds of species found nowhere else on Earth. On the flip side of this though, because these plants and animals are found nowhere else on Earth, they're especially vulnerable to threats like invasive species, habitat loss, and climate change. This unfortunately makes Haleakala the national park with the most endangered species as well. Okay, leaving Maui, we'll head to the Big Island, home to 4 NPS units. The big guy is, of course, Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. As the name implies, this park is all about the volcanoes. Of the Big Island's 6 volcanoes, this park protects 2 of them, Mauna Loa and Kilauea, the latter of which is considered to be one of the most active volcanoes on Earth. In fact, depending on when you're watching this, there's a good chance Kilauea is erupting right now. The volcanoes here in Hawaii, though, are not your catastrophically violent eruption type volcanoes like Mount St. Helens. These volcanoes are actually shield volcanoes created from a hotspot deep beneath the Earth's surface. The eruptions here are more flowy and less explodey, if you know what I mean, but that does not mean that they can't do any damage. Lava is still lava and it is still very destructive. There's very little you can do if the Earth all of a sudden opens up and starts spewing molten rock down the hill toward your house. That's what this park is all about though, preserving and interpreting volcanic geology and monitoring these very active volcanic landscapes to better understand them and prepare people in the event of an eruption. Now, that's it for Hawaii's 2 capital N, capital P national parks. But now we start to move into the history and culture parks, some of my favorites, which are particularly unique in the Aloha State because they preserve and interpret Native Hawaiian history and culture, a subject that most Americans probably do not know a lot about. The Big Island is home to 3 of these sites. Pu'uhonua o Honaunau National Historical Park is one of the most sacred places in all of Hawaii. You can break the name down like this. Honaunau is the location, it's the name of the place, and Pu'uhonua means place of refuge. Essentially, this was a place where Hawaiians who broke the sacred laws, or kapu, could go to rehabilitate themselves physically and spiritually. Also, a lot of Hawaiian chiefs are buried here. It's one of the reasons why this place is so sacred. In fact, you can still see evidence of these 2 primary uses of the site today. There's a big giant wall which separated the Pu'uhonua, the place of refuge, from the sacred area where the chiefs visited and were buried. Moving north up the coast from there, you've got Kaloko-Hanokohau National Historical Park, which protects the Hawaiian concept of an ahupua'a. An ahupua'a is a Native Hawaiian land division which encompassed all of the land, essentially stretching from all the way up the slopes of the volcano right down into the ocean. This ahupua'a would have been taken care of by a single family, or ohana, and was really all about sustainable resource management. Native Hawaiians clearly understood that what happened way up on the slopes of the volcano directly affected what happened down at the ocean, and that all of these natural resources were deeply interconnected. This system allowed them to survive and sustainably manage the limited resources of these remote islands. That's what this park is all about. The Big Island's final cultural site is Pu'ukohola Heiau National Historic Site. A heiau is a temple, and Pu'ukohola is, once again, the location where this site was/is located. This isn't just any temple though. This was the temple that King Kamehameha I built as a sacrificial altar to gain the favor of the gods. See, at the time, Kamehameha was in a fierce battle with his cousin over the control of the Big Island, and the prophecies foretold that Kamehameha would be the one to unite the Hawaiian Islands under one single ruler. After a decisive battle, Kamehameha invited his cousin here, who accepted the invitation, likely already knowing his fate, and when he and his party arrived, they were promptly killed, and the temple was officially dedicated. Kamehameha would then go on to unite the Hawaiian Islands. This temple is still in use today, so you're not allowed to go on or near it, but you can walk around this site and understand the stories and significance that it is protecting. Now we'll leave the Big Island and head over to Molokai, home to Kalaupapa National Historical Park. This park protects the site of a former leper colony. This was during the mid-19th century, and at the time, leprosy had no known cures, so it was thought that isolation was the best way to prevent the disease from spreading. Over the course of just over 100 years of operation, 8,000 people, mostly Hawaiians, died here. There are no roads into this park as it sits at the bottom of several very large cliffs, so to visit it, you'll either have to hike in or fly. And finally, let's move to Oahu, home to two NPS sites. The first is the Pearl Harbor National Memorial. You've probably heard of this one, but maybe you didn't know it was a national park site. This is actually Hawaii's most visited national park site, seeing over 1.5 million visitors every single year. As a national memorial, this site is largely commemorative in nature, protecting the infamous site of the attacks on Pearl Harbor, which killed 2,403 Americans and signaled the US's entry into World War II. Fun fact with this one too, it used to be part of a completely separate NPS unit called the World War II Valor in the Pacific National Monument, which had like 9 sites, I think, all over the Pacific, including in places like California and Alaska. But that was actually abolished in 2019, and Pearl Harbor was spun off as its own thing, a newly created NPS unit. And last but not least is Hawaii's newest NPS site, established in 2015, the Honouliuli National Historic Site. This park protects the site of Hawaii's largest internment camp during World War II, holding more than 4,000 people at one point. However, you can't visit this one yet. It's not open to the public. The site is entirely surrounded by private land, and the Park Service is still working on a way to provide access while respecting those private property rights. So for now, this park remains largely a digital experience with lots of good resources online available for you to learn about the history of internment on Hawaii during World War II. And that is everything, my friends, the 8 NPS sites of Hawaii. I was fortunate enough to visit 6 of these on my recent trip in January, and it's just such a unique place. Of course, largely known for its idyllic tropical island paradise, which I very much enjoyed, but there's a lot more to discover on these islands as well, particularly as it relates to lesser known history and culture. Hawaii's NPS sites do a fantastic job of protecting all of these aspects of the islands. Let me know in the comments down below how many of these you've been to and which one was your favorite. As always, direct support on Patreon is always appreciated. This is an incredibly niche channel, and so every little bit of fan funding helps me to keep cranking out these productions for you. I really do rely on my community to help keep this whole ship afloat. All right, that's it. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.